We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the CashFlowPro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of CashFlowPro, your daily real estate investing podcast and YouTube channel. I'm here today with Tim Brat of Legacy Wealth Holdings. And before I bring Tim in, I want to remind you, the listeners, to please head down and leave us a review for the CashFlowPro podcast. If you've listened to us before, if not, leave us a review after you listen to this episode. And while you're there, please smash that subscribe button, because that is the way you will get notified when we release new content and new episodes, so that you won't miss any of our very, very important guests that could help push you along in your capital raising, investing, or syndication journey. So with that being said, Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey man, excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, dude. We're excited to have you here too, and we're always excited to learn stories about how people got in the business and where they came from, and because it's so relatable to so many of us who have. I had a guy on here the other day who started out as like a maintenance tech or whatever. Started out, he was basically in charge of changing toilets, plunging toilets, fixing outlets, doing that kind of stuff, and now has hundreds of millions of dollars under assets under management. And so we're just very, very intrigued and to hear relatable stories about how people got where they are. So why don't you kind of start out, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how you got started.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I appreciate you having me, and it's an honor to be here. I love the value that you guys bring to your audience too. So yeah, man, I'm a blue collar kid from Cleveland, Ohio, right? My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a police officer. And going through school, I always knew, I was always fascinated with making money, and when I was going through college was 03 to 07. So the market was going gangbusters and everybody's making money in real estate. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go that route. So in college, I got into the trades. I interned for a home building company. And then I ended up moving out to New York City, where my brother lived at the time, and just got a real estate license and started brokering retail leases and office leases for commercial properties. This is 2007. And I brokered one lease, and I did the math, and I realized how much residual income this owner was going to be making from this little unit in their big building over the course of of a 12-year lease term. And I was like, I need to be doing that. I need to be owning real estate, not brokering it. And so I decided to move down to Charleston, South Carolina, and in 2008 moved down here and decided I want to become a real estate investor. And then all of a sudden, the entire market collapsed in October of 2008, and I was like, dude, what's going on? And
it's so funny how so many of us were around during that time, and like how many people had almost a full-on paradigm shift due to that happening, but by the way, dude, Charleston is probably one of the most kick-ass places I've ever been. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. I love that place.
Dude, it checks all the boxes, It's
so like weather, so much history.
History.
You're not
architecture, art. Food.
You're not real far. I don't know about the weather. I think we were there like early summer the last time I was there. So I'm not 100% sure about like full on summer weather, but dude, Charleston is a good pick.
Yeah, I go up to the Midwest in the summertime because it gets a little bit hot and humid down here. And then I'm here for like 10 months out of the year. But
awesome.
But yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's one of those things. To your point, when you see the market shift like that, and especially as a new kid, thinking everybody was printing money, everybody was wealthy, everybody was getting rich in real estate, and then you see some people who were rich and now they're broke. And then some people who are rich and now they're even richer.
Yep.
You're like, how does the same market happen to everybody? And some people sink and some people swim. Like, what's the difference? And I started asking myself those kinds of questions. And I realized it wasn't about the market, right? That was happening to people. It was the person and the business model and the business strategy on how were they going about their investing, right? And the people who got their ass handed to them, they were speculators, right? They were buying at a retail price. They weren't creating any appreciation through sweat equity. They were just speculating on appreciation, right? Hoping tomorrow it's worth more than what they bought it for today. And it was build to sell kind of a model, or again, speculative land plays, things like that took people out completely. The investors who were able to ride out the storm and were the only ones getting loans when banks weren't lending to anybody anymore were the ones who were buying for cash flow, right? They bought at a discount. They created value through sweat equity and forced appreciation through the value add process. They had the property that cash flowed. They had good debt terms in place. There were some principles that I realized that I've implemented in my business to make sure that that never happens to me, what happened in the last go around. And so, I never got into like the fancy, sexy, super luxury or high-end flips or anything along those lines. I flipped houses, but they were always turnkey single family rental properties, right?
Sure.
They didn't sell. I didn't care because they still cash flowed. And then I got a taste of apartment buildings in 2012, where I bought an 8-unit building and put some money into it. And dude, just my mind was blown based on going to one location instead of 8 locations, looking at one roof instead of 8 roofs, one seller instead of 8 sellers, and like one tax bill instead of 8 tax bills, right? Like there's all these nuances in both acquisitions and raising money and financing and on the operational side and dispo side. That's just easier when you have more units in one location. And that really got me excited. And I was like, this meets my sense of efficiency and where I want to be. And I went all in on apartments. So built up a portfolio of a couple hundred doors over the next few years. And then that partnership, I had an exclusive partnership with some money guys, ended up just kind of going away, and we decided to go our separate ways. So we liquidated that portfolio, started over in 2015, late 2015, and built my current portfolio since then. So the most doors I got up to was about 4,800 doors, a little over 4,800 doors at one time, over $400 million portfolio. And but I've over the course of the past like 2 years, I've been kind of peeling off some stuff. I think we all go through like these transitions and growth phases where like, hey, I started out in the war zones, right? And then I graduated out of the war zones into C class, and then I got into B class.
I think some of that too, you start seeing what's problematic, like what maybe what side, like you could, for instance, determine that a 25 unit is far more, which obviously the fewer units you have, the more problematic they are in relation to the bigger you get. But and you can kind of start honing in on saying, hey man, these are the good assets that really make good cash flow. They have good cash flow. They're in a decent area where there's not just full on troublesome tenants or troublesome crime or troublesome whatever. And so, yeah, man, I mean,
the C class stuff, dude, looks good on paper, right? But the paper returns aren't real returns. And you're always going to have a better long-term return when you get into more the B class stuff. Like your highest expense in owning rental real estate is going to be turnover. So the more you can limit turnover, the greater your returns are going to be. C class and D class tenants turn over a lot more than B class tenants. A class tenants actually turn over a decent amount too, because they're buying houses. So if you stick into that workforce housing, blue collar workforce housing, B plus, A minus kind of areas that are desirable, safe, good economic anchors, good school systems, dude, you're gonna have tenants that stay there for a very, very long time. So that's kind of what we focused on. And so as I've been growing my portfolio, we've been kind of trimming some of the fat in like you said, the smaller properties, the C class properties. And so I'm down to about, I don't know, right around 3,000, a little over 3,000 doors now. And I'm going to sell probably another 800 over the course of the next couple of months. So I'll drop down to about 2,500 doors, and it's one of those take a step back in order to make some bigger leaps forward kind of a thing. So
sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And I think that's almost a necessity. I think as we move through the entrepreneurship, I guess, cycle, if you will. And again, you start trying to figure out what works for you what's the most beneficial thing for you and your investors, and what do you bring to the table? So with that, I'd like to really kind of dive in and dissect maybe your first deal, where the capital raising portion, the deal finding portion, and everything kind of came together, and you realize, ding, 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 hey, I'm onto something here. So many people out there, and man, I'm gonna like I always try to go back and relate to, how did my story fit it, or how does my story resemble what everybody else is going through. And I have to be the first to tell you, or first to say, that the years that I spent owning rental property in the real estate business, moving and shaking and making money that I didn't ever think was even possible, was still chump change. But I had never investigated or never even realized that this whole part of, hey, I can go get outside capital and I can start taking down some of these 50, 100, 200 unit complexes like the big guys. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to find out a little bit more about when you hit that ding, ding, ding moment or aha moment and said, wow, I can do this.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. And it's actually not one that I get very often, because I think there's different stages, right? And like, I think a lot of people who listen to podcasts and go out to coaching events, they think they have to have everything dialed in from the very get-go. And the reality is I didn't. I was really bad at real estate before I got good at it. And I was bad as I owned hundreds of doors. I still didn't have it all figured out. I didn't know how to syndicate, right? I just got private money, and it was a different market too. I can go and just get cash to buy an 8-unit building and be all into it for $100,000, right? It's like, those numbers don't exist today because it was a very different market. So, your strategy is always going to change, but you're always adding tools to the tool belt at the longer that you're in this business and the more stuff that you see. And so early on, I just got private money, and they funded 100% of the purchase price and renovation. I didn't even use bank loans for the first, 4 years that I was buying apartment buildings, getting into commercial. So I just used private money and hard money. From there, then I realized somebody reached out to me and said, hey man, can you sponsor the loan? And can you raise some money for this deal? And it was building some townhouses in Savannah, Georgia. All I had to raise was $300,000. They had a really good setup. The bank was very motivated to get some bad debt off their books. They were willing to lend majority of the renovation costs and purchase price. We just had to bring 300 G's. So I wrote a check for 75 and I raised 225, and then I sponsored the loan. And I got 26% of that deal for doing that. And I was like, damn, like that continued to grow, got fully occupied. And I was like, dude, how many of these can I do? So I understood a little bit about bringing money or sponsoring a loan for equity in a project. So that kind of continued growing. And then started meeting some mortgage brokers. They said, dude, why are you just using private money? Can we bring some money to you? Yes. And then I started kind of syndicating, where I get debt, and then I just bring in a single investor just for the downstroke. So I got into bigger deals that way. So I bought, a 134-unit apartment complex where one investor wrote a check for $900,000 for the down payment, and the bank brought the other rest of the money. And I found people who could write big checks. I didn't even know syndication was a thing until 2018, where I had a big project. I'd raised $4 million. I'd never raised more than $900,000 before. And I had to piecemeal it with a lot of different investors. And dude, that deal, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. I had to talk, like I'm figuring this thing out as I'm going through the project. I'm talking to syndication attorneys. I'm raising money. Not sure if I did it the right way initially, right? Had to go back and clean everything up. And that's a standard, process and procedure. Just knowing that, dude, you're always going to be learning as you continue to grow. And so, everything's very black and white after that first couple messy deals that I did. But the reality is, dude, you never have everything figured out. But when I realized, it was mostly, dude, creating content, right? This is what was the epiphany for me. You hosting this podcast, bringing on guests who convey a lot of value to your audience. You are bringing value, obviously, but really you're bringing other people to share their experience, but you're the one who gets all the credibility for it because you're the medium in which that information is passed through, right?
Yep.
So now you have people bringing you deals. Now you have people bringing you money. Now you have people who want to come and work for you and for free just to get educated. And any of us can do that if we just share our story through social media. And that's what I started doing. So when I had a couple hundred doors, I was sharing this, like, did you guys know that you could even make money this way? Like, you don't have to go and work for somebody for 40 years. You can just go buy a rental property. And I started talking about that. And that turned into message after message after message of, dude, can I do a deal with you? Can I sell a deal to you, buy a deal from you, invest with you, joint venture? Or can I pay you to coach me? And that turned into like a little mini mastermind and a little coaching platform, which generated more deal flow and more money. And that really gave me like kind of this hockey stick trajectory.
Sure. And so when you, did you start with family and friends?
So I was flipping houses. So I had people in the real estate industry who were hard money lenders and turnkey buyers of the houses that I was flipping. And I said, hey, you're trying to get 10% return on your money in this, shithole single family house that you're buying over here. Why don't you just give it to me? I'll pay you 10% and I'll kick you some equity in that deal. So I don't traditionally syndicate in the sense of institutional equity. Mine's a little bit different. I pay a fixed return to my investors, regardless of whether or not the property's performing. If it's not performing, I just create an interest reserve and make sure I build that into the cost basis. And then I pay them a fixed pref. And usually it's some sort of a value add component where I can push rents. I can cosmetically improve the property, physically improve it, managerially improve it. And then we can refinance in 36 months or so, get them all their money back. It's essentially the Burr method, right? And then they maintain their equity forever, but they don't have 80%, right? My LPs typically get somewhere between 20 to 40% total ownership in my deals because, dude, the operators are the ones bringing all the value. We're the ones finding off-market direct-to-seller deals. We're the ones negotiating it. We're the ones doing all the due diligence and creating the value and really, rolling up our sleeves and getting our hands dirty in order to increase the value component of it. So that's how we've done it.
Now, I want to hear a little bit more. You've hit on value add multiple times, and I think at least when I got started, I had this idea that value add was purely like hard goods, like adding a pool or adding a fitness center or adding this, but there's actually many, many, many elements to value add that I think a lot of people overlook. And I'd like to hear maybe your take on value add, because I've found it to be like fingerprints. Everybody kind of has one they all have one, but everybody has one, but it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And so tell me, what is your idea of value add, and what are the things that you all do to make that happen?
Yeah, man, great question. And I think this is something that people definitely overlook, and it's integral to understand this stuff now, that prices are tight and you're trying to figure out, how do we make this deal into a deal, right? And most people just look at, hey, if I renovate the unit, I can get the rent up to here. And that's the extent of it. There's a lot of components that go into it beyond that. And if you understand how apartment buildings are valued, they're valued like businesses are valued. So you take a look at the income minus the expenses equals the net operating income. And then it's a multiple of that NOI, which is a cap rate, right? And so how many different line items are there in the income? How many can you create in the income? How many are there in the expenses? How many can you reduce in the expenses? So, from a physical standpoint, or let's start with expenses because that's a little bit easier. Taxes, you can always appeal property taxes, or buy the LLC and try to hope it doesn't get reassessed. Like there's things that you can do in order to try to limit property taxes. Insurance, obviously you can shop the insurance around, make sure you're doing that on a regular basis. Utilities, we always put in low flow water fixtures. That reduces our water bills by 40%. In many of our buildings, water and sewer bills. We also put in LED lights. That reduces our electrical bills by about 25%. So we're doing things like that, obviously, to reduce that side of things. Dude,
It's creating a spread. It's creating a spread, and it's everything that you can get in there and wedge and create the spread, because some of those things, just because you change out incandescent light bulbs for LED light bulbs, you can't be like, all right, rent's going up $25 necessarily. Now, what you can do is like you said, reduce your expenses. And then if you're also remodeling and doing some other things as well, which I'm assuming that kind of goes along with changing lights but the low flow water fixtures, man, that's honestly, that's kind of pretty close to the first time I've heard that is a value add strategy. Of course you have people that do a little bit of this here and there, but man, that's just go to Amazon and order a damn case of 100 shower heads that are all low water flow and change them out.
It's legitimately $200 to $300 per unit. That's it. And you'll get your money back within 10 months by doing that.
Wow.
And so what you need to understand, or what people need to understand, is like every dollar saved goes straight to the bottom line, just like every dollar gained goes straight to the bottom line for the most part, you know? And so you can equally impact the net operating income by saving money without even raising rents. You know, if you could just reduce the expenses, maybe you just make all the improvements on the front end and harden the property, meaning we don't put carpet in any of our apartments. We only do LVT tile. I don't do ceiling fans anywhere. I only do flush mount globe lights because ceiling fans have parts that break. They have too many moving parts that rattle. People hang shit from them, you know, like those little fly catcher things, like all that nonsense. We don't do carpet because it holds bugs. It holds dirt. It stinks. It maintains smell. People put cigarettes out in it or iron marks in it, and you have to change it out all the time. Here's another thing. Maintenance, right? If I have carpet, I have to steam clean the carpet between tenants, which means we can't walk on it for a day or two while it dries, versus LVT, where we sweep it, mop it, and it's ready in 30 minutes, right? So the more you can reduce turnover and turnover time, and we do that by hardening the property on the front end, it reduces our ongoing maintenance. It's a very predictable maintenance schedule, and then allows us to, you know, have more predictable cash flow.
Yeah, that's a good term, hardening the property. I like that. I think that really just kind of it seems like that just kind of is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's really what you're doing, is hardening it. So, you know, I think a lot of people too overlook the minimum things you can do in a kitchen to really upgrade an apartment of value add. And again, the kitchen tends to seem to be a spot where rent can get increased if things are really in good shape and look decent and whatever.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about the ways to increase income now, right? We talked about ways to reduce expenses. Just real quick on the income, is obviously easy is renovating the unit, right? So by putting LVT floors that look like hardwood in, it just makes it look nicer. You know, you're putting better colors on the walls. You're using grays instead of the tans and beiges that from the 90s and early 2000s. We do everything white, right? Like if I took you into any one of my apartment complexes in 12 different states, and I blindfolded you and spun you around and asked you where we were, you wouldn't know because they all look exactly the same. So that way we can take paint from one location, take it to the other one, take fixtures from one location, take it to the next one, and knowing that exactly what SKUs we're using for all that stuff. So that's a big deal. And when you think about kitchens, to your point, dude, we're not talking about like a gourmet kitchen. We're talking about like legitimately 12 to 15 square feet of granite. And when you realize a piece of laminate countertop is $150 or $200, and you can get granite for $350 or $400, but it hardens the property. It attracts better tenants. It maintains better tenants, right? You can't get burn marks on it. It'll last forever. Dude, that kind of stuff you can raise rent from.
And a lot of times people look at that LVT for water. The water, and you may have said water, I may have missed it there. I was trying to take some notes and whatever, but the water, man, the water damage to some of like when everybody started going with like a laminate clip together board, whatever, and it's like that was good stuff until just you spilled a cup of water on it, and then all of a sudden it swelled or whatever. But yeah, that LVT is really, and that to me is like a solid investment. The only thing that really goes, the worst part about that is the color is probably going to go out before the floor wears out. So, but nevertheless,
yeah, man. But a couple other things is like, dude, here's one of the things we did down in Georgia. I have a bunch of 70s vintage, type properties, garden style apartment buildings down in Georgia, and everybody had these tennis courts. And so I can go in and they're all beat up, right? Like it's all beat up asphalt. The nets are missing. The chain link is all rusted out. And we can go in, we could rip them all out and spend $10,000 in order to rip it all out, get dumpsters, truck it all out of here, and then plant new grass. But then I just have an open field, and it's $10,000. Or what if we went about painting the chain link fence? What if we painted and resealed the asphalt? What if we put a gate on it along with a doggy bag dispenser? Now we took something, and instead of a $10,000 expense, now it's a $1,500 expense, and we turned it into an asset, a pet run for the dogs. Now, that pet run doesn't make us money, but what it does do is attract pet owners who pay a $100 to $200 non-refundable pet fee for each pet and an extra $25 to $50 a month on each pet that they have in their apartment. So now it attracts pet owners who are willing to pay more in rent and in deposits. This is Hudson. And
hey, buddy, he's the one that's bringing all the knowledge, right?
Right. And so, but it allows us to add more income, right? Does that make sense? And here's like, you could do valet trash service. If you have a maintenance person on staff on salary, guess what? You don't even have to take on any more expense. You just have your tenants put the trash out on, Monday nights or Sunday nights and Thursday nights. And right outside their door, are they willing to pay an extra $30 a month in order to not have to take their garbage out down the hallway, drag it, dripping, trash gets blown all over. They have to walk across the parking lot in the rain, in the dark, worried about somebody jumping out at them or a friggin' raccoon jumping on their neck, opening up a dirty ass garbage can, flies all over them. Dude, nobody wants to do that. I would pay $30 all day for valet trash service. And so, dude, have them put it out there, have your garbage guy know that the trash is there. Then it controls the litter and the garbage around the site. There's a lot of things like that. If you have a 100-unit building at $30 per person per month, dude, you're talking about $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year at a
divided
6%.
by your cap rate. Divide 36,000 by 0.06, and man, you got what,
$600,000.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Value for no additional expense, right? So you got to think outside the box of how do you add value to these properties. And that's a great way of doing it.
Hi, this is Casey Brown, host of the CashFlowPro podcast and YouTube channel. Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but just don't know where to begin? I'd like to help by inviting you to check out our website at www.3000capital.com. There you will find an array of material that will help you learn all about real estate syndication. And while you're there, be sure to check out our free video series download titled 5 Must-Know Keys to Success in Passive Real Estate Investing. I'd also like to personally thank you for making CashFlowPro part of your day. Now, back to the show.
Man, I mean, and that's such a masterful way of selling it too, with the flies and the raccoons and the maybe what we should do. So listen, let's dissect this a little bit. I wonder how much you can buy raccoons for. Are they cheap, you think? I don't know. Maybe we could just go get some.
We could
turn them out. And that's going to automatically make people want to do the valet trash service. So, it's I guess a way of forceful thinking. I don't know. I'm just kidding. No. So if you're at any of our properties, please don't be on the lookout for raccoons, because that's really not a strategy. It was just a
wink,
joke.
wink.
So
wink, wink.
Yeah, that's right. So all right. So what does Legacy Wealth Holdings have in store, or what is coming? What are we looking at in the near future?
Yeah, man. And again, we go back to like the graduating steps of your real estate journey. And we're in a place now where we've got some in-house management, we got some in-house construction, we have a great team, an amazing team in place. We have a pretty good brand out there, and a lot of deal flow and a lot of access to capital. And with the changing environment, I don't think value add deals are really where we're spending a lot of our time. Especially most of the stuff out there is really heavy value add. You're taking like walls that are bare walls and having to redo everything, and we just don't want to do that. We're not willing to take on that responsibility or that risk anymore. So we're buying a lot more stabilized kind of stuff.
Sure.
I think rents are going to grow pretty substantially as
like Class A stabilized stuff, or
I would say, not super luxury, but I would say, B plus, A minus, A class type property.
That's
probably
cool.
rents from $1,200 to $2,500 a month, which is substantial in most of the markets that I buy in the Southeast, in Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina. Those are some of the better properties in town, built in the past 20 years or newer. So we're still buying apartment buildings and, buying them with a little bit longer time horizon in place. Like I said, I think rents are going to grow with inflation growing. Rents typically track inflation better than any other metric. And so I think that's going to keep on rocking and rolling. And then at the same time, we're doing a little bit of like triple net lease kind of stuff. And I have some very unique high end, like Airbnb short-term rentals. Like I bought an island. We're building out some cabins on it. And
wait a damn minute, an island? What in the world? So no, man. You just extended the podcast by at least 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But I want what? An island? Where did you buy an island at? And how did you?
Right next to Hilton Head. Right next to Hilton Head Island, in between kind of Hilton Head and Paris Island, in like Beaufort, South Carolina area.
Yeah.
It's an inland island. It's got 110 acres of uplands with about 350 acres of marshlands around it. So it's very exclusive, but it's very close to the mainland also. So you can be to downtown, Beaufort in 10 minutes. You could be to downtown Hilton Head in 25, 30 minutes. And so it's a cool location, but you feel very isolated when you're out there, which is neat. And it's already got a dock. It's already got a house, 4-bed, 4.5-bath house built in 2005. We totally renovated that. It's got an old barn, generator shed. We just updated.
Can you drive to it?
No. So I had to buy a mainland property that actually cost me twice as much as what the island cost me. But now I have access to a dock and trash and public utilities and some of that kind of stuff. But the island we just updated all the solar. We have well water. It has septic. It's a self-sustaining island. So we're going to put some cabins out there, like 200 square foot, tiny glamping style cabins, and host some events, host some retreats, do, I don't know, I think some cool, maybe fishing retreats, probably do some cool, like Army military boot camp style stuff, like tactical retreats, survival retreats.
Yeah, I mean, if you got 110 acres, man, I mean, that's not exactly small.
No, it's almost a mile long by about probably half a mile wide. I don't know, something along those lines, but a quarter mile wide. And
that's pretty cool. Now,
it's a cool spot.
Who's the president? I mean, like, are you just like supreme ruler, or
yeah, I think so. I think that's how
rule
that
with an
works.
iron fist, and
Oh
my God, man, that's cool, dude. That's awesome. That's probably one of the neatest things I've at least heard this week or in the last month or so. That I mean, because the potential there and the angle that you're taking on it, as far as like you mentioned the word retreats. I mean, like that's, and then automatically you want to know the first person that comes to my mind whenever I think about an island where retreats happen. Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, yeah.
I mean, like that's everybody's like, oh my God, Richard Branson, he's so wealthy, he owns his own island and whatever. But no, that island is a source of income, because I don't even think people understand what people pay to go down there and spend a weekend either with Richard Branson and or renting something like this, what you're talking about, on his island. And it's just
for like $100,000 a night or something crazy,
Yeah, so. and then if he's there, it's even like if he's there, or if he gives a presentation or anything like that. I mean, it's an absorbent amount of money. So are you going to change your last name to Branson, or are you just going to stay? I just was curious. I didn't know.
Well, yeah, I actually have the same birthday as Richard Branson. And
Well, that's cool. That's
I'm
definitely good.
not one to kind of like go toe to toe with Richard Branson, but my island's like
No.
3 times the size of his. So I'm not saying anything, but I'm kind of saying something.
I got it,
No,
man.
I got a ton of respect, man. He's one of my favorite entrepreneurs out there.
Absolutely. 100%.
And what I love about him is he figures out ways to develop lifestyle into businesses. You know, like that's his, like, I respect the shit out of that, because he's like, hey, I want to do this. Well, I need to create a business in order to pay for that, so I don't have to come out of my own pocket. He's great at taking liabilities and turning them into assets. And I think having that resourcefulness is what is the epitome of making you an entrepreneur. If you can look at something and say, how can I make it better? How can I make it money? How can I make it generate revenue where people want to pay for this asset or pay for this experience? Dude, that's the entrepreneurial spirit at its best.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and he's got an epic mind, and, you know, the way he portrays himself and like when he has a vision, like when he's looking out like Elon, he's looking out 50 years from now, not even next month or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, his vision, and then he, like you said, he creates a brand around that vision, and it's all created around the Virgin brand, and then it's got all this other stuff, and it just kind of spirals out. And so anyhow, but all right, well, listen, we're running out of time. So Tim, real quick, what is the best book that you've recently read or are currently reading?
Oh man. A good buddy of mine named Mark Evans wrote a book called The Magician versus the Mule. And it's really good. It's how to get out of the day-to-day grind, as we've all get started as an entrepreneur. And you're doing everything, right? And you're muling the activities. How do you get to a point where you have a team, where you have systems, you have processes, and it looks like you're an overnight success, where you got the lifestyle, but you still have this big business and you're making more money than ever? What does that look like? And that's a really, really great, powerful book, Magician versus Mule.
Awesome, man. I'd never heard of that one. That's definitely a new one on us. So, all right, what is a dream vacation that you have either taken or hope to take?
Dude, I just took an awesome vacation. So my little guy, you know, this is cool for parents. It was never on my bucket list, but my little guy, was 4 years old, just turned 5, is obsessed with dinosaurs. And so we decided to take him out to Colorado and Utah this past summer, just a couple months ago.
Been there. What's that little town called? What's the little town called?
It's like Dinosaur Town or something like that. Like it's
in Utah. Man, there's a town there.
There's Dinosaur National Monument. There's
yes,
dude. We hit all these different museums all around Colorado and Grand Junction. In I think it's called Dinosaur Land or Dinosaurville or something like that. Dinosaur, Utah. Or, we went to Dinosaur National Monument. Like there's this amazing just piece of granite the size of a school, and with 800 different fossils in it and stuff. And they built like an enclave around it where you can go in and you can actually touch the fossils. It's really, really neat. And so it was cool to kind of see something that your kids really, really like into, and then being able to feed that inspiration with even more. And now he's a savant, man. He can name 100 different dinosaurs, which continent they're from, and what they eat, and all this other stuff. So that was a fun one.
That's awesome. Good, man. That's always great when you can include the kids in those dream trips, because that's a lot of us, I think we lose sight sometimes of, and I know as your entrepreneurial journey goes on, there's going to be times when you have a ton of time for the kids, and then sometimes it seems to get squashed down, and we really should always have plenty of time for them. So, because we brought them here, we ought to teach them and show them. So awesome. Sure. Now, if the listeners heard something that resonated with them and they want to reach out to you rather, and get in touch or talk to you more about any of the stuff you've got going on, maybe even camping out on your island or whatever, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, man. Social media. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at Tim Bratz on Instagram, or /TL Bratz on Facebook. And just hit me up there and shoot me a message, shoot me a friend request, and say hello. If there's any resource that I can share, I'd be happy to point you guys in the right direction and offer some insights and offer some advice based on your situation. So, yeah, Casey, I appreciate you having me, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely, man. No problem at all. We're glad you could take the time to be with us. And again, thank you so much for that. And listeners, as always, thank you for taking the time to listen to the CashFlow Pro podcast. Do not forget to head down and leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than 5-star review, please. And also type a review so that others may know what you liked about the CashFlow Pro podcast. And while you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that subscribe button, because that is going to be your link. That's how you get notified of new episodes and new content that we release. And again, Tim, thank you so much. And listeners, again, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us today. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.
CashFlow Pro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.